Hey guys, I'm Sam Crack, and this is my favorite car of all time, the first generation Audi R8. There's a million things to love about this platform, but my favorite is that it's a DIY-friendly supercar. There's a lot of maintenance items and repair procedures that you can complete at home with simple hand tools and a shop manual. You could source these parts at your Audi dealership and online, unlike its sister, the Lamborghini Gallardo, where a lot of those have to come from overseas. They're special order, and in some cases, you just can't get a hold of them. On top of that, this car is a relative bargain in the supercar world. Good examples start in the mid $60,000 range, then go all the way up to over $100,000, depending on the mileage and the options you get, of course, the year it was built. And I realize that's a lot of money to spend on a car, but a car doesn't exactly have to be expensive for it to deliver a great driving experience. Now, I've already expressed my gripes with the TT, but this car was the inspiration that led me to be able to buy my R8. So even though the first gen TT is far from perfect, my goal here is to try and make Audi's best TT as exciting to drive as an R8, but for a fraction of the price. We're starting off with a great platform here, especially for its $3,000 junk auction bid. We have quattro all-wheel drive, a dual clutch transmission that wasn't even offered in the first few years of an R8, and an iconic VR6 engine out of the Golf R32, which delivers arguably the best exhaust note from any six-cylinder ever produced. But before we start tweaking our TT to make it an excellent driver, we've got to repair our major drivetrain issue.
First time I fired up the TT, I noticed there was a strong vibration inside the cabin, especially at idle. Upon inspection under the hood, it was clear the engine was sitting very low and the upper motor mount had failed. It was failed to the point where not just the material inside the mount had been compromised, but the top bolts that hold the mount to the engine had snapped off completely. This means someone was driving the car around like this for a good amount of time, all before it got repossessed.
Now, don't get me wrong, my personal cars are far from perfect. As you guys have seen before, I'll go a month or two before sorting things out sometimes, but driving around with a failed motor mount, especially the main motor mount that's responsible for holding your engine in place, well, the idea of it just sounds really bad. But I want to counter that with something that sounds really good, and those are these Raycon Everyday E25 wireless earbuds. Now, I've been telling you for a while about these incredible earbuds. They're super small, which makes them really comfortable. They have 6 hours of playtime, perfect for your favorite album, audiobook, or even for use during a conference call. And right now, when you head over to buyraycon.com/samcrack or click the link in the description box, you're going to save an additional 20% off a set of Everyday E25s, making this Raycon's best sale of the entire year. It is just for a limited time, and you have to use my link, buyraycon.com/samcrack. And these make for an incredible Christmas gift. I gave a set to my sister last year, and every time I talk to her on the phone, she tells me I'm on my Raycons. I love my Raycons, I'm sure you will too, and if for some reason they don't fit your lifestyle, well, Raycon offers a 45-day money-back guarantee. I gotta give a huge thanks to Raycon for this tiny little innovation with huge sound and for also sponsoring this video. Here is what looks like our original motor mount. It's got the Audi stamp on the top, and you see how much movement is in the bushing there. That's a problem. Definitely this has failed, and what happened is every time somebody steps on the gas, it sends all of that stress through our mount here, and with it being collapsed, the bolts that were sitting on top here, over time they got worn and just snapped out of place. The old worn motor mount out of the way before we even get the party started on our stuck bolts, which are now stuck studs. I'm gonna shoot a little bit of penetrating oil down in there to hopefully make our job easier.
When it comes to broken off bolts, you want to be as gentle as possible. We're in a good place here though, since we have a little bit of the bolt extending out of the hole. This specialty tool is made for studs. It's a stud extractor, and I've had great luck with it in the past. There are rollers inside that tighten around the top of the stud as you turn it. These rollers should be able to grip the top of the broken bolt and turn it out, and it worked like a charm on the first one. The second one though, wasn't budging, not at all.
Oh man, did it come out? Did it break? I think I broke it. And this guy's really putting up a fight here. So I let this sit overnight with some more penetrating oil in it, heated it up again this morning, and I tested out this new stud extractor that I got from the auto parts store. I was concerned at first because it's substantially larger than the ones we were using, but it did fit in there. And basically you sit it on top of the stud and then you turn it like this, and the inside fingers in there grip on the stud. And after just a couple turns, it felt really tight on there. I turned it
and look, it broke the fingers apart inside of here. This is destroyed at this point. Luckily, it's got a warranty on it, so they'll replace it for me, but I think this is going to be a really stubborn job. All right, we got a bolt extractor on there. This one is really tight, so I'm going to hammer it on. Just think it's too rounded for this, but we're going to give it a shot. So I just tried this bolt extractor, and I got it gripped on there pretty tight, but it just took another thin layer off the top of the screw head at this point. Check out the combination of tools and supplies we've used just to get that one stubborn broken bolt out. We're resorting to what I didn't really want to do. I've got a nut here. I'm going to get that nut on top of our broken bolt down there. We're going to twist it on as much as we can. I mean, this is missing most of its top threads. And then we're going to see if I can't fit my welder in between and weld the nut on the top, basically giving us something to go and turn from once it's all secured. I thought my weld looked halfway decent here, but it just wouldn't hold when I went to spin it off. I don't know if I was using hardware that just wouldn't weld right. I don't know if it's because I have a kind of cheap and basic welder. I don't know if it's because I'm not a professional welder, but I tried welding this about 2 or 3 times, and again, every time I would go to spin it, the weld would simply break. This bolt seems completely stuck, and I keep telling you it's in the engine. It's really on a bracket that's attached to the side of the engine. So I jacked the engine up as much as I could, and I removed the bracket from the car. It's held in place with just 3 bolts, and it came out with a little bit of wiggling. This is something I clearly should have done a while ago to make this job easier. Now, even with the bracket out of the car and attempting every trick I know of to remove stuck, stubborn bolts, I failed. I spent at least $40 on all brand new titanium and cobalt drill bits, and I had a thread insert ready to go in the case I needed to use it. My intentions really were to save this bracket, as I called the Audi dealer and asked him what a new one would cost, and they told me $220. Of course, I like to keep a tight budget, and I really thought we could have saved this thing, but after spending hours of drilling and making very little progress, I gave up and I ordered the new bracket. All right, our brand new mount has been installed. You can see there's one bolt right here, there's one that's inside here, and then there's another one underneath. So again, jack the engine up. I was able to put these 2 in. Now this is at a strange angle. It's hard to fit a socket in there. So what I did is I grabbed this long pry bar, and you just kind of get it on the side of the engine here, and look how simple it is. I'm not putting a lot of force on this pry bar, but you can really move the way this engine goes. So see, I just pushed it back enough to fit a socket in there. Then I dropped it down by releasing the pressure on the jack. I got in underneath with my ratcheting wrench. Ratcheting wrenches make jobs like this, where you have very slim openings, much easier, and then tighten it down there. All right, we're ready to install our brand new mount from FCP Euro. This is a Febi branded mount. You'll notice it doesn't have the Volkswagen Audi stamp like our old broken mount here. Also, one other thing I want you to notice, remember all that flex in this old mount? Check out our brand new one. There is absolutely no flex. This is dead. This is really simple to install. But why I'm telling you all this about our new mount, it's important when you're doing something like a motor mount, you want to get something that's quality. Again, Febi, it's out of Europe. You don't want some cheap Chinese stuff that's going to prematurely fail. And here's the other awesome thing. From FCP Euro, on their site, they said you might want to replace your hardware, which is darn right, because obviously the 2 bigger bolts here that go in the bracket side, those were destroyed. It's really important we replace all these since they're under all that added stress. I want you to get a better look here. These are flush to the frame, and these are both right and dead center, right where they need to be. But you'll notice there's a big gap between the bracket itself and the actual mount. That means we're not high up enough here. We need a little bit more space in between the top of the bolt. So all we're gonna do is just jack our engine up a little bit more, and you can see right there. Let's see if I can get you. Perfect, see that right there? That's exactly where we need to be. All right, there it is, just torqued it all down. And now you can see how much higher our engine is sitting up versus where it was before. We go and release the pressure on our jack. Let's see if I can do this with one hand here. All right, the jack is off the engine. You can see it hasn't moved whatsoever. So we're in a good spot. We're gonna reassemble all this. We're gonna fill this back up with power steering fluid. Now we should be able to safely move this car around. When you do have stuff like that
broken engine mount. You got to figure the engine's bolted to the trans, and so while that engine is just jumping around in the engine bay, because that was definitely left apart and driven a while after the mount itself collapsed, you take out other things, you cause a lot more wear than if you would have just got that basically like $80 mount fixed. So I'm gonna go pull this axle out here. Luckily, the parts store has one of these in stock. Now, while I'm thinking about it, we better go check the opposite side axle, because if I gotta buy two, well, I'll get them both while I'm there. And if you look at this one looks to be in much better shape. I wouldn't be surprised if this one itself hadn't been replaced before. Look at that boot. See how the boot is all in perfect shape? It's not cracked or torn. So we're not gonna replace this one. This side looks really good. We just gotta worry about the driver's side. Ran out, got the fresh axle shaft, threw this in literally just a few minutes. We've got 5 out of the 6 bolts torqued down. But see that one right there? It's kind of tough to get to. It's the same thing I had to do whenever I was loosening it. But when you're working on an axle shaft like this, you're gonna need it to rotate. And so it's real simple. You just get in the car, you get it into accessory mode so that you could stick the shifter, in the case of this being an automatic, into neutral. And then the wheels also both need to be off the ground. I jack the other side up, and if I stick my socket in one of the bolts, doesn't matter which one, and you turn it, see how it's turning the entire axle? That's because we're in neutral now, and by doing this, it'll give us access to the one loose bolt. And in some cases, you might have a couple of them. All right, right there is where we need to be. Now, we go reverse what we did, throw it in park. That will assure that the trans stops spinning. And I forget now, it's either this one or the one next to it. We can stick our socket in, torque it down, and it's as simple as that. Our new axle has been replaced. If you saw my first video on the TT, you know my major complaint about this platform is its handling. These cars lack road feel. They're a bit soft and mushy in the corners. They got quite a bit of body roll, especially for a car that doesn't weigh all that much, but we're gonna improve all this substantially by installing this upgraded coilover suspension setup. Now this setup on all 4 corners will cost about $1,000, which sounds kind of pricey for a car that costs only a few $1,000s. However, it is actually an excellent value if you consider what just replacing a factory shock costs, and even the upgraded shocks that FCP Euro carries. By the time you pair those with a lowering spring, you got this beautiful, really nice European coilover that's actually made by the same company that makes the OE shocks for this car and for a lot of other European automakers. Now, there's a big reason why you gotta shop FCP when you're buying this stuff, and even stuff like our motor mount, and that's because they offer you a lifetime guarantee on everything they sell. Say you blow out a damper on the track, just one of the 4. If you call the company that makes this and want to order just one, good luck. It's gonna cost you almost as much as an entire set. But with FCP, you're back. You make a call, doesn't matter if it's next month or 10 years from now, they will replace it. Now, one other quick and inexpensive upgrade the TT is gonna get while we're doing our suspension mods are these strut top bushings. These are a little bit stiffer durometer than factory, even though they look almost identical, but people really talk about how much more road feel and improved handling you get with these. They don't cost much more than the factory ones, and you need them if you're doing a strut replacement anyway. FCP recommended these to me at checkout, and it was like a no-brainer. If I got to order them anyway, why not get the upgraded ones? And I do want to give a quick thank you to FCP because they do partner with me from time to time on my builds. They are doing that with this Audi TT. I think they're the best in the business when it comes to educating their buyers on quality European car parts, and their customer service is run by a bunch of car enthusiasts that know these platforms inside and out and can guide you when it comes to your own repairs on your own European car. So if you need anything to tidy up your car at home, go ahead and check out fcpeuro.com. I'm going to drop a link to them in the description box. Now, behind the scenes, I already kind of tore apart our front corner suspension here, tore out the old shock and spring. I've got this new and all assembled. Let's get in there, reassemble everything, and make our TT handle like a real sports car. All right, we're getting ready to drop this down on the ground. Look at about how much space is between the wheel and the tire right now. I have this at a very low setting. I think the TT will look really good. Almost slammed. This is stock ride height. Haven't installed this coilover setup yet. Look at much more room. This might be a little too slam, but let's drop it to the ground, see what it looks like. Oh yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, no, and it's gonna drop quite a bit more. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm gonna go and throw the other side coilover on. We'll get the entire rear end dropped and then compare, but that's gonna be good. I've done suspension modifications and repairs on Volkswagens, Audis, Porsches. They all use this kind of same setup where you got the knuckle itself that grips the strut, right? And so in some cases, a lot of cases, you'll see me with one of these hammers. See, I got my dead blow right here, beating the back of the knuckle to get the shock to separate from it, because this really clamps around the back here. Little did I know that they make this tool right here. This is called a spreader tool, and FCP Euro had it. It was one of the recommended tools whenever I had the coilover system in my cart. This little thing was a couple dollars, and it is so simple. So if you come around the back side here, you'll see where there's a little notch. It might be tough, but you see that little notch right there. So you take the narrow area of the tool here, and I've got this on a little mini breaker bar to make things easier. But all you do is turn it, basically to wedge it in between and get it to where it feels like it's perfect, which is, oh, right there. You stick it in the narrow side in the slot, and then you turn a bit. I'm trying to do this with one hand. All right, right there, it almost feels like it's been locked into place. Now, what we could do is simply, watch, it's already starting to fall a little bit. I'm gonna shoot some penetrating oil in here. You take your dead blow, and look at it, it's just sliding right off. Now there's one last repair part that I proactively ordered because I expected to be failed when we get on the underside of the car and remove it, and that is one of these. This is a dog bone mount, otherwise known as a pendulum mount. It sits on the underside of the engine and transmission. It's really easy to take in and out. And while this looks like just a generic factory one, it's actually an upgraded one with a higher durometer bushing inside. Again, sold by FCP Euro. Now this is still a street friendly mount. It's still going to be comfortable enough to drive in. It's not like a solid mount where it's going to transfer a bunch of noise, vibration, and harshness into the cabin. But I expect this to be failed on ours because it sits, again, right directly underneath the engine and transmission. I'm going to show you just in a moment its location. But with our upper mount breaking apart and the engine dropping down, you have to figure put a ton of force on our factory mount and likely just rip the inside of the bushing on it. So let's get under the car, detach our old one, and see how beat up it is. See this movement? This thing is just toast. Good thing we're replacing it. Now, if you're ever working on these mounts, sometimes when you pull them out, the engine will shift a little bit and move the placement of your bolts. In this case, they actually lined up pretty well. But if you need to, you can always just put a little pry bar in between the body of the car and the engine and move it where you need to. Working with the suspension on the TT made me realize how much of a wheel gap these cars come with from the factory. There's quite a bit of room there, and by dropping the car down, we're going to lower its center of gravity. We're going to improve the handling, probably eliminate a ton of that body roll. And I just can't wait to see what this car feels like. Now, once I adjust the front height on the coilovers, I'm going to bring this car out here, maybe even park it next to the R8. I'm going to take some photos, post them up on Instagram. So if you're not already following me, you can go right here or click the link in the description box below. But before we get this car out on the road for a test drive, remember, I have a feeling it's been quite neglected, so we're going to change out a lot of this car's fluids. We already did the power steering fluid today, but this car has quite a bit of fluid since it is a Quattro all-wheel drive. So basically the diff fluid, we're also going to do the DSG fluid, and this sort of stuff can be intimidating. The dealership will tell you, well, we've got specialty tools to do this, and while they do, you can get those specialty tools yourself. That's going to be the purpose of the next video in this series. Now, as I've been working along on the TT, TT, I've been posting some updates on the community page here on YouTube. If you haven't seen those, it's probably because you're not subscribed. My stats are telling me only about 30% of the people watching these videos are actually subscribed to the channel. So just scroll down a little bit, click that subscribe button, the bell notifications if you want to see those posts. And coming up next, we're going to take a tidied up TT. We're going to pit it against the Audi R8, considering its gross price difference, and see how it does. Guys, if you can't wait for that, be sure to hit the like button. I can't thank each and every one of you enough for watching today. I'll catch you very soon.